All right, welcome into Two for Talking. I'm your host, Corey Tusick, producer, and I got here Joe Bartnick and Josh Yohe of The Athletic. Joe, you're special this weekend, or you're special. You basically have a new special, by the way. You've got a solid 50-plus minutes of just new material at the Improv. You absolutely killed it, and I'm not just saying that, people. Absolutely murdered it. I literally thought a guy was going to die. Kent, if you're watching this, you were sitting with me. You know the guy that was off to our right.
Almost gave this guy a heart attack, Joe.
Oh, thank you. I just want to thank everybody for coming to the show. What a great crowd. Thank you, and Kent, thank you, Kent. You better be listening, Kent. My two buddies, my two comps.
Yeah.
They better be laughing and saying good things about the show. No, but thank you for coming out. It was we had a lot of fun. Thank everyone in Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh Improv is a great club, great staff, and I'll be back probably before the end of the year. So.
Yeah, if you missed it out this time, you better.
Yeah, and I'm going to be just perfecting it for the special, probably shooting in the spring. So come on out again.
I was going to say you're ready for another special because that was.
Thank you.
That was a killer. But we got the conference finals going on, and we got a game going on right now that Joe does not know the score of.
I love this game with Joe. Can I tell Joe the score? Nope. Cannot tell Joe the score. He's on his California time. I respect it. Even though we're coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
We are in the same room for the first time for this show.
Yes.
That's great stuff.
Yeah, thank you to Ange and Joe Senior for hosting
Yeah,
us.
and Ange is her hot sausage and jump balls ready for you guys. We got to hurry.
Yeah.
We'll knock this out in an hour.
She gave me the hover a little bit too. She did hover over my shoulder slightly.
Oh, I'm a little jealous. You got the Ange hover.
Me and Franco get the Ange hover.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so far so good. Exactly what we predicted. The Rangers are off and running. What do you guys think is going on here? Because just even speaking with my nephew earlier today, he's like, I did not see this one coming. Rangers being up 2-1.
Listen, this is what I find interesting about the Rangers, Joe. And I'm on board. I think Florida's better than them. I thought I picked Carolina to beat them. It's interesting that a team that won the President's Trophy is kind of under the radar, and they play in New York, of all places. It usually doesn't work that way.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, the Rangers just kind of, and I think it's because 5-on-5, they're not great. I think a lot of the analytics people are like, someone's going to beat them. They're not very good 5-on-5. But the power play's so great. The goaltender's been really good, and they're just kind of getting that feeling, aren't they? Like, man, is this just like their season to get all the way to the final? I have to give them some credit. I thought they were dead in the water in Game 3 when Florida came back and just dominated that game. Then they win in overtime.
Yeah, when you got a team down, you got to bury them, and you got to score goals. And us as Penguins fans have seen that forever. Just owning the play. I mean, I don't think New York touched the puck in the third period of Game 3.
It was incredible. Yeah.
When you see, Vinny's cooled off a little bit, the Pittsburgh keeping Trocheck. They've got nothing from Zibanejad. Mm-hmm. They've really got nothing from Kreider. They got nothing from the bread man. But now Lafreniere is playing like a number one overall pick.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's playing like a number one overall pick.
Yep.
And Barclay Goodrow, he's won 2 rings in Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. He's scoring an overtime winner that he had 2 big goals. Yep. And number one, kind of pains me to say, because I kind of like everyone on the Rangers. I could do without Trouba's elbow, but I'm not a fan of Igor. And Igor stood on his head.
He did.
And if Igor is going to stand on his head, they have a fighting chance. But I do say there is a lot of highway left in this series.
Oh, yeah.
And Florida, I think, may just wear them out in just a continual barrage. And we've seen Igor snap before. I called he's going to snap, but also we haven't seen the bread man and Mika do anything. So that's scary. It's Kreider. That's a scary thought for Florida, really.
Boy, Kreider's been really quiet.
Yeah.
And Game 1 was just a clinic from the Panthers. Yeah. That was, what a dominant performance that was. Even when it was 1-0 in the third period, never for a second did I think they were losing that game.
Right.
They were in complete control. And we saw in the third period of Game 3, Florida does this. They just wear, like you said, they wear you down over the course of a series, but they do it over the course of a game too. Even in the regular season, there have been a couple of Penguins games in that building in recent years. Penguins were ahead in the third period. They just get steamrolled because they're so deep and they're so big and fast, and they just wear you out. So I think it's a fascinating series. I still think Florida's better, and I think whoever wins Game 4 probably is going to win the series if I had to pick. But Igor is an X factor. He really is.
Yeah.
He's one of those goalies he's the classic goalie that can steal a game, and that's a scary thing.
I think
right?
he did, Josh.
He did.
Okay.
No, yeah, you're right.
I mean,
he gave up 4, but he did.
He did. Well, the thing is, too, is like, sometimes you say steal a game when it's Hasek or Flower, when you just see 5 incredible saves.
Right.
Now, he maybe had maybe, Bobo might have had the more dramatic saves.
Yeah, he did.
But maybe just the positioning and everything just hit him. I mean, he really... I cannot like his attitude. I cannot like his style of play, but I got to give it to him. I always say jealousy is a bad look, and he played a hell of a game.
No,
he really was the difference. And a lot of those guys, other than Lafreniere and Vinny T setting up Barclay a couple of times, they didn't do anything.
The thing about Lafreniere,
Josh, the Rangers did nothing.
No, I know. You mentioned Lafreniere. One thing I love about him, he plays like a jerk. Like he's got an edge about him.
Yeah.
Like I mean that as a positive.
Oh, I know you do.
He's a really physical. I think it was Trocheck's goal in game 2 when he just wiped out whoever it was that had the puck and created the turnover. He's coming into his own now. In the first couple of years, I think we all thought he was a bust, right? Because he wasn't McDavid or Matthews right away. Well, not everyone's going to be them. But he was 18 years old. Sometimes guys just need a couple of years and they figure it out. He gets better and better and better every year. He is emerging as a really dynamic player. So I think this series is fascinating on many different levels. I still think Florida's better. I just watched them. They're so dominant.
Right.
5-on-5, I like them better, but man, this is really getting interesting. And the pressure's on Florida now.
Oh, 1,000%. And I would say this too, just in Lafreniere, not his defense, just speaking of him, some guys just, I'll bring up a lot. I think I might have said this last week, either here or on Paco. I remember in Elias Pettersson, I was making fun of the Vancouver fans and management when they were saying, that's a roughing penalty, because Elias Pettersson weighed like 130 pounds. It's like, hey, just because a defenseman knocks you down doesn't mean it's roughing. It means you got to go to the gym and you got to take your GNC products. I just think Lafreniere just got like 20 pounds of man strength between being 18 and 22. And it's like, he's knocking over people now, and he's getting in those areas, and he's a hell of a player. They really found the guy now. Like that, he's making a difference. Like, think about where they'd be without him. They'd be down 2-1. Is where they'd be.
No, there's no question.
Speaking
of knocking people down, we have to talk about Trouba for a minute.
Sure, especially as a Pittsburgh-based podcast.
Right.
Everyone's waiting. Bartnick's going to scream at.
Listen, I've been saying for a while, it's just his default. When he's beat on a play, he just sticks the chicken wing up. He just does. And I'm not defending him. It's just it's what he does. It's instinct for him at this point. I really thought he was going to get a major because of what happened, and frankly, because of the reputation. This is, this is a guy who is in the news all the time for this kind of stuff. Only a 2-minute penalty. Your thoughts, Joe?
Now, no one wants to put their elbow through Evan Rodriguez's head more than me.
Game 6 penalty looms large, trust me.
So in a way, I envy Trouba. No, I never say, but I thought he wanted to kill him. On first look, I thought he kind of hit him in the shoulder more. Mm-hmm. But then when I saw the review, I'm like, oh, that's a 5.
Right.
He hit him square in the head. I don't know how it's a 2, but I think they went 2 with Kulikov. And that Kulikov hit I thought Kulikov was a 5 in a suspension.
Oh, yeah.
It was a bad hit. Yeah, that was a bad hit. But I think giving him the double penalty in one play, I think you think, I can do whatever I want because I'm already for the hook or the trip. I think that was a kind of shot across the bow, and maybe, okay, now you're even with Kulikov. I think he's on double secret probation now. I'm always wrong on these things. But you know what I mean? Do you feel that way? Maybe 50-50,
I didn't think he was going to get suspended when I saw it, but I thought it was 5-minute worthy.
Right.
And listen, he's earned that reputation. He's a cheap shot artist. He is. He's a good player, but he's a cheap shot artist. He has been for many years now. I never know what the league's going to do in these situations, although he did get the mandatory $5,000 fine, which always makes me laugh. Did you see what Paul Maurice had to say about that?
No, I would love to hear that.
He said something along the lines of, well, I hope Jacob can afford dinner tomorrow or whatever. That's a lot of money. Paul Maurice is hilarious, by the way.
I absolutely love Maurice even before he became Mr. Quotable. When he was just a good guy,
right.
I haven't dealt with him like you have. Here's my thing with Trouba too. Sidney Crosby hit notwithstanding, I love that kind of hockey. That's Scott Stevens hockey. Like I wish that was still kind of in the game. It's always skate with your head up, asshole. Is my I've always gone with that theory. What I think is bad, and Trouba, and most of Trouba's hits are open ice. In open ice, which I like. I think that's I don't care if they're predatory. I even like the little Colby Armstrong you're coming around.
Yeah.
Where I really have a problem, where I really don't understand, is the difference between a board and not a board. Because to me, it seems like, oh my God, and it's nothing.
Right.
And then a little tap, and it's a 2. I know between a 2 and a 5, but it seems like almost every board is at least a 2. But they don't the only ones they call it, they call it when they won it. Or your team's had 3 penalties. That's when you knew the Rangers would get a couple too.
Of course. And by the way, boarding is more dangerous than anything else in hockey.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
I'd rather take a headshot than my head going to the wall.
Right.
That's how you get paralyzed.
That's what I'm trying to say. That seems to me the old Scott Stevens hit should be in way more like, okay, and take away.
Yeah.
Especially like someone's 3 feet from the boards. That board is just so dangerous.
I agree. And I think we have lost a lot of physicality in hockey, too much in my opinion. I too like physical hockey. I love how Florida plays. Like they're a little villainous, but I like that. But the game needs that. And it's fun to watch, quite honestly. Does Trouba not listen? Trouba goes too far sometimes. I don't like the elbows to the head. I don't.
Well, not like the Rodriguez elbow. I like when it's like you run through someone. Okay, shoulder then head. Okay, that's just part of that's part of the game. Like you can't.
No.
You're gonna take any headshot. Well, now come on now. I don't want to watch flag football on hockey. Like I want because as much as I love the Penguins and a lot of other guys, hey. If you want to live till you're 70, drive a bus. Like, I'm paying $150 a ticket. Like, I want to see somebody get hit.
Well,
especially in the NFL for sure. But it's like it's a violent game.
When I hear people say that they want fighting banned from hockey, I always tell them, listen, I go to 70, 80 games a year, and I can tell you that anytime 2 men on the ice decide to fight, everyone in the building stands up and cheers, and they love it. And this is the entertainment business, okay?
Yeah.
Let's not lose sight of that. It is. And if 2 men are willing combatants want to fight each other, that's their choice. They don't have to. But it's the entertainment. People forget. I go nuts about instant replay, too. Like when people are sitting around for 10 minutes because you got to get the call right. Guess what? It's an NHL playoff game. There's 100 calls that are not called that should be all the time. Like we're going to go back and focus on if it was offside. It drives me nuts because it's entertainment. And you're losing that entertainment when you have all the dead time.
Well, if you were talking about that,
we can.
This is no. Well, that you're talking about dead time, and this is the NHL playoffs. I mean, the New York Rangers are in the playoffs. You're on ABC. Yeah. So if I talk about this before, please producer Corey, let me know. How is the first 20 minutes of prime time Messier's corpse and you plug in PK Subban and Bouchergras, and that's the first 20 minutes? It should be you get all your anthems and all you want out, and at 8:01 the ding 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 the puck is dropped. So in Flummanship in the channel, it's like 1947 on the clock, and it's the NHL playoffs. So the first thing people see isn't Messi, well, he's a tough competitor. It's literally Remke going in the corner cracking somebody's skull. I mean, seriously, how is it? My dad just yesterday was like, how long is this pre? I mean, it's just like, just play the game. Well, I mean, the pregame, I don't care if Barkley and Tina Turner are doing the pregame. It's not entertaining as the actual hockey game.
And I think they're so misleading when they say 8 o'clock face off or whatever, when it's really 8:20 and you got to, like the NFL, 1 o'clock, like 1:02, they're kicking off. That's okay. I like that, right? I think you raise a fair point, and I'm hard on ESPN a lot, but I just think TNT's coverage is so much better.
1000%. The best thing now is at least ESPN puts the big clock behind them.
I like that.
So when
Yeah.
I'm TiVoing, I can speed so fast. I know exactly when it's going to start.
That's the best part of their intermission report. It's like, oh, we got 7 minutes. I can go downstairs real quick. I can go take a piss. This is great.
Yeah,
No.
no, seriously. Yeah, it's just such a pet peeve of mine. Like, how are you holding? Like, it's the nation wants to watch. Like, this is prime time.
Yeah.
And you got the New York Rangers, and you are showing that pregame show.
You're showcasing your pregame show, which is not
Isn't
good.
very good.
Yeah.
And shout out to Seth Rohrbaugh, who my friend Jason Prem, who always retweets it on Twitter when Seth throws out the actual puck drop. And my friend, if you follow him, Premer on Twitter, you got to follow him. He's a good Penguin follow, but he'll always retweet that and say Seth doing the Lord's work.
Seth is one of my best friends in the business, and he'll sometimes ask questions when there's a national game in Pittsburgh. He'll say to the Penguins, "Hey, what time's face off really?" And they'll say 8:20. So he'll always tweet out, "Don't be misled by the TV networks. Puck drop is 8:20, just so you know."
Yeah, the Lord's work is beating the Flyers.
That's true.
Let's get that straight. But Seth Rohrbaugh, his empty netters column used to be the best.
Oh yeah,
it was the best. Why does he? I guess because it took his whole life away from him. I mean, literally. I mean, it was.
I don't know. That was a Post Gazette thing. Back and now he's with the Trib, but
that was an amazing. Everything was like it must have took so long to put together. I mean, unless he's a genius. But I mean, like literally, that just took. It was the greatest read. Everything was like right there.
Seth is just one of those guys who's always up till 3 a.m. Like
he had to be. I'm on the West Coast at 3 a.m. I'm getting like new empty netters.
Every phone call I've ever gotten from Seth, like 1:30 in the morning, I'm always up late too. I hear my phone ring. Oh, it's Seth. Seth Rohrbaugh. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
no, Seth's great. One of my favorites.
Tap of the stick to Seth. And bring back empty netters. It was the best.
Well, the best Seth thing that he used to do, he would take pictures of random jerseys in the crowd. I'd be like, Seth, there's a Rod Buskus jersey in section 212. He'd run downstairs and take a picture.
He still gets them.
He still does.
He retweeted mine one time, and now I'm spacing like a more. There was a guy that came up with the Rangers, not the Rangers, with the Penguins. Excuse me, Jesus. And he was already waved, and 2 guys wore his jersey as a Penguin, and he was waved to the other team. It was like, was it may have been Ponifrikowski? It was
Ponikarovsky.
Maybe I'd have to go back through. Maybe Seth will remember if he's listening, or maybe I'll just go through my tweets. But it's like literally from like 7-8 years ago. But the guy was already gone, and it was like the team he got waved to. We were playing or whatever. It was like the guys were wearing. It was a real long name too, and like only the 3 shirts ever on earth. Anyway, I'm sorry to mislead. Are we?
Yeah.
So we think. I still think Florida. Well, they have to win Game 4, but I still think Florida's a much.
Rangers aren't going to lose 3 straight, so I think Florida needs to win. But if Florida wins Game 4, they don't have any problem winning in New York. I still think they're better, but this has 7 games written all over it. How about Game 7 at MSG? That'd be fun.
I've learned something in my 15 years of picking games for different outlets. I always just say 7. No one's like, they only won in 5. They just remember who you picked.
That's right. I always pick 6 for that very reason. It doesn't really offend anyone. You pick them in 5. The Islanders fans, you think we're going to lose in 5? Yes, you're the Islanders. Actually, right? But
I'm going to hit on your one point though. You said the Rangers aren't going to lose 3 in a row. The league is not going to let them lose.
ESPN's so happy the Rangers are doing.
Oh, I know.
You can tell. Yeah. They're all Rangers fans. ESPN. It's unbelievable.
Even the broadcast is very Ranger heavy.
It is.
And I know the difference.
It looks like a home broadcast.
Right. I know because I literally watch. I was telling Kent this the other day because I was saying how I almost always watch the other teams' broadcast to learn about the Penguins from the other perspective.
Sure.
And what it really is like, and I'll explain to people listening here. The difference is if Getzlaf or Mears says, Letang lost the puck, they go, Barkov took the puck. Mm-hmm. Like that. Like that's the difference.
No, that's a good point. I never looked at it that way. But listen, the best thing for the league financially is probably Jesus winning the cup at Madison Square Garden, right?
I would think.
I mean,
or maybe still the Rangers winning.
Maybe, but just the Rangers being in the final, the league would love that. Right. I mean, we're talking New York and Sunrise.
No, I know. No,
I get it.
1,000% the Rangers.
I get it.
I mean, I think I just don't know if I think Jesus helps the league. I don't know because every Ranger, there's only so many McJesus jerseys are going to be bought. Like the Rangers is like. That'll give a 5-year boost. That's like a 5-year boost.
Oh, it is. I mean, they got a lot of fans. Speaking of McJesus, Dallas Edmonton. I guess we should touch on that series as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you know what's going on. Did you see?
Of course I do. But
I don't know.
We've got a good hockey game going on. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, good! I can't wait to watch it on 2-speed.
Yes,
That's one of the only skills I have is I can call out secondary assists on 2-speed. Here's my big thing tonight is Rupe Hintz is back, and I've said this before, and I say it everywhere. He reminds me of a young or a 3-year, 4-year in Evgeny Malkin. I think he gallops through center.
Yeah.
Now he plays a little more defense than Gino. Well, almost everybody does.
Right.
But when he gallops through center ice and gets it going, I love watching Hintz. And I picked Dallas to win. I picked the anti-Bettman Bowl. I picked Florida Dallas. Yeah,
and they're the two best teams. In my opinion.
Right.
Dallas didn't look right in those first two games. Like they won game 2 and they had to. But Ottinger kind of stole. He was great in the first period when they were really getting played. And I think Hintz's absence was a really big deal,
especially for the Pasadena kid Jason Robertson. That's his center.
Right. Yeah, he needs him. And when you're playing against Edmonton, well, you've already got a problem at center, right?
Yeah.
So then you lose your top guy. And there's a trickle-down effect there that I think in a playoff series becomes a real problem. So, Hintz is back. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I think he's a really big part of that Dallas team. I will say this for Dallas. When they get a lead, they remind me of like the 95 Devils, man. They just shut you down and the game's over. And Tanev has made such of a difference. He's so good. Their whole blue line's good.
I think I've said this. I mean, like when everyone was saying, when Toronto was everyone's lusting for him. Like, is he Larry Robinson? I'll tell you what, he's very good.
Yeah.
Like, I thought he was overrated the way they were teams were begging for him.
Me too.
But man, has he turned everything around in Dallas on that team.
You don't see the quote-unquote defensive defenseman anymore, but that's kind of what he is.
Yeah.
And the job he did against Colorado, oh, man, was he good in that series.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
But their whole blue line in Dallas is so good, and I think DeBoer he's a good coach. I mean, listen, systematically, they're the anti-Penguins. They're so structured. When they get a lead, they're not giving up 2-on-1s. They're not, you know what I mean? They're just not.
Well, I don't know if you heard. I think speaking of announcers, real quick, I love the tension always between Edzo and Boucher. Yeah. They don't like it. It doesn't seem like they
comes
like
across that way.
Yeah. No, I mean from the beginning when he used to be like a couple years ago, he'd always be like, I don't think. But I think it was Edzo or Boucher or what I forgot to say his name. Former Flyer, who cares? That now I'm totally forgetting my point. God damn it! I totally forgot my point now.
I wanted to ask you guys about so Dallas. I mean, I just trying to look up real quick how many minutes they've actually led, but they're not suffocating the Oilers like I thought they would. And I mean, do you think it's just because they're not playing with leads as much?
I think the Oilers are just a different breed. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way they can generate offensive.
Bouchard is just turned into he's turned into Paul Coffey.
Yeah, he has. I mean, the way they generate offense, they're just different than anyone else. Now they're also flawed, but they're different than any other team in the league. They can score 3 goals like that, and you're not surprised because of the talent that they have.
Well, you know what my dad said? He goes, "I think McDavid has a twin because he's always on the ice." No, I wonder if because they've been getting some more secondary scoring, and I thought it was huge that young coach, or he may not be young, but that new coach bench Corey Perry. I guess Henrik's playing tonight.
Yeah, he is.
But he benched him 2 games ago because I like Sam Carrick. I wanted the Penguins to get Sam Carrick.
Yeah, you've always liked him.
I think he's a perfect kind of guy for the Penguins. He's tough and he'll actually play hockey. Which you need to be able to play hockey for somebody to play it. I'm still losing my mind on what the point I was going to make about.
He's talking about Boucher and Edzo fighting. They just forgot.
Yeah, I know. I literally forgot. But something about the Dallas defense, though.
I bet it was magnificent. I don't doubt it was.
It was so worth it.
Yeah,
it was.
By the way, game 1 of that series was great because McDavid takes the 4-minute penalty. And you're thinking, oh, man, this game's over. McDavid's sitting in the penalty box just watching. Then he wins the game in double overtime. That was quite a moment for him. I mean, really.
Yes.
It was. That's what great players are supposed to do. When you're
needed that moment.
You're given second life like that. And I give him credit. He's not having, for his standards, I don't know that he's having a great postseason. He's not scoring a lot of goals. but he can erupt at any time. Dallas might be the best defensive team in the league, and they're playing against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. It's a great matchup. It really is. But much like Florida, Dallas reminds me of Florida, really. They're big, they're fast, they're deep. They have a good goalie. They do everything well. They just look the part.
Jamie Benn's playing out of his mind. He's sniffing it. And how about Sagan? Got a bunch of goals.
Yeah.
Now they dropped Pavelski down. This may be the end for I love Pavelski too. He's such a great play, such a winner. It's funny because other than Shesterkin, I like everybody still playing.
Yeah,
I don't have one guy I don't like. Like usually, it's like I don't want this guy to win.
Right. Well, it's always like there's the list like Marchand, you want him out, and then like the Flyers and Capitals are out. I know the Penguin fan list.
Yeah. Oh, right? Well, it's that we it's almost summer programming, but it's like no matter what NBC or what anyone tries to pretend, it's like it's the Flyers, and then for a time it was the Rangers number 2, but it's Flyers. Capitals. It should be the Islanders, but for some reason they always get a pass.
They do.
They've caused, other than the torment from Nixon to 89, no one's tormented us no one's ruined everything more than the Islanders.
Oh God, not even close.
But for some reason they're like number 4 or 5.
It's interesting. You're right.
For some reason they get the charity pass.
I don't know why that is, but no, you're right. Nobody can ruin a spring in Pittsburgh like the New York Islanders. 1975, 1982, 93, you name it. Like
even 2019, they put the kibosh on like our run there of back-to-back cups, and then in 2018, I mean we were the second best team in the NHL. And then, we go into the playoffs in 2019. And then
even 2013, the Penguins had all they wanted in the first round against the Islanders. Those Penguins were.
Is that the only time they ever
beat them? When Tavares actually looked in a playoff series.
Might have been the only. I'm trying to think. I think that is the only time the Penguins have ever beaten the Islanders in a series.
And it took a Brooks Orpik slap shot
in overtime,
right inside the blue line to do it.
No, that's true.
Well, I'll tell you speaking of, my theory on 2018 is Dominic Simone cost us that series.
Game 5. They took that penalty, that chicken offensive penalty. I remember it well because
I know every bad offensive. I know every bad penalty we've taken in the last 30 years.
The Penguins were in control of that game.
They were completely.
And he took that penalty, and Letang had a terrible third period too. But
that was it. We were winning. We were had like 2-1 or 3-2 in like
the first. I think it was 2-1 when Simone took the penalty.
Yes, and that was it. They scored on that power play.
They were steamrolling the Capitals in that game. They really were.
I'll never forget that. Yeah.
Terrible penalty. I'm not surprised that you remember that. I still remember the corner in the press box where I was sitting in Washington.
I can still see it. I can still see it. I can see Velik's shot going through.
If you're never going to score goals, you don't take penalties like that. I mean, if Gino can get away with it, he's going to score goals usually, but you can't do that if you're
poor Dominic. He's one of the few people that it's like an obscure Penguin that most people shouldn't even remember. But my wife remembers his name because of how much I would bitch and complain about him. So that was a special night.
But that was that's my. That was the end of that.
Never coming back from that. Well,
that's what's so funny when Ferraro, who I think does one of the only guys that really does a great job on ESPN.
Yeah, he's very good.
It's so funny because literally 93. They did show that highlight the other day too. I'm like, really?
Oh, I was watching. Like, come on,
really?
It's like the Sid Bream stuff. Like, I mean, do you remember there was like a Comcast commercial that played in the Pittsburgh area for years that literally had the clip of Sid Bream sliding in. I mean, and this was in 2008. It was 16 years after it happened. I was like, this isn't in HD. Why are you putting this on your commercial?
Put me in therapy. Stop it.
Yeah.
We don't need to watch this.
That's so funny. So I don't know what's happening tonight. I do still like Dallas in this series, but I mean, Jesus had to. It's going to be hard to knock out Jesus.
Jesus can walk on water.
No question.
You looked at me like it's 4-1 Edmonton in the second.
I know exactly what Joe's going through right now, where you sit there and you try to decipher how people are talking to you, and what does this mean for how the game is going?
I'm not giving it away.
No, you're not really. Now, do you believe momentum carries on though? If Edmonton wins tonight, do you think they have no? Do you think the trains are rolling?
I believe in that a little bit. I do. I think it's a bigger game for Edmonton. As long as Dallas gets one there, I still think they're in control. Dallas is so good on the road, too.
Well, yeah,
they don't care.
When they lost the first game, I told my dad, they lost the first 2 to Vegas.
And right. And don't you find that home advantage just isn't as big of a deal?
I love starting on the road.
Yeah.
Because I think there's all the pressure in game 1.
Yep.
And you just have to win one.
Just got to split and you're fine.
You just got to split. If you win the first one, you are so playing with house money.
Oh,
And
yeah.
let's face it, until Sullivan, Game 7s were atrocious in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Like,
Oh.
I did not want to have Game 7.
Well, not at home. Yeah,
Right, yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
No.
If you would have told me that Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final against the Ottawa Senators, who were much worse than us, was going to happen, I would have said we were going to lose. Like, I would never believe we would win that game.
That's the kind of team they would have lost to in Game 7s usually. Of course, they beat Tampa the year before, and they beat them 2-1. It should have been 6-1. They dominated the game, but that was the first Game 7 at home, and they won. That was the first one in like 20 years.
Right, and that was all because the video coach saved the day.
Yeah.
It may never have been a Game 7 if not for that in Game 6.
A lot of things happened right.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that low Penguins talk in the second segment. So we'll get back. There were a couple of signings, one in particular that I want to talk about, especially with the length, but also some Disco Dan Bylsma news. We'll get back to that and more on Two for Talking. Welcome into the second segment of Two for Talking. Real quick note on the Penguins signings that, they signed Gruden to a 2-year deal.
Chucky.
Yeah.
They have
Chucky,
to call him Chucky,
That's right.
Josh, do they call him Chucky in the team? They have.
How would you not?
I don't know if he's earned nickname status. He might.
They
He
call
just
him
might be
Grootsy
Groots
or something.
Groots or something. Yeah.
But the St. Ivany, we talked about how we all kind of really liked him, and a 3-year contract. Which again, this is to me the perfect player that the Penguins need. The young, cheap player.
I think that St. Ivany has to fire his agent. I mean, that's a disgrace. How does he 3 years at 8? I mean, first of all, he's a starting NHL defenseman.
Yeah.
If he's not coming into camp, he will be by December. Let alone for the next 2 years, he's making $800,000. I mean, I
Joe,
think,
he's from Manhattan Beach. Maybe he's already independently wealthy and doesn't care. That's not true. I'm sure he cares.
I mean, $800,000. That's like 3 months rent. I mean, he must have bought something in Cranberry for. He's now living in Manhattan Beach for $800,000.
I think it was great work by Kyle Dubas.
Yeah.
Listen, the sample size with St. Ivany is really small, but he had a little bit of a pedigree. And I thought he was lights out every game. I thought he was so good. He's a big kid. Just very stout defensively, plays with a little bit of a physical edge. He's still only 24. I think he can get a little better. I don't know what his ceiling is, but when you're a right-handed defenseman, you're the third pairing guy because you got Carlson and Letang ahead of you. As a third pairing defenseman at that price with what we saw from him, I think it's a really good signing. I do.
I think it's I think it's one of the worst contracts I've heard in the last
for the player.
in the last like 3 or 4 years. Like, I mean, literally, it's one of the where I'm like, geez, no way. I always say I gotta be his age. I mean, literally, that's a crime that he didn't. I mean, 1 year, 800,000, but bet on yourself, kid. I mean, like that was. I mean,
well,
hey,
if he plays well, it's a great deal for the Penguins.
It's an incredible deal for the Penguins, and it almost. If you're saying he's getting 800,000, then it's like, okay, well then you add all the contracts up, then you're only paying. I'm bad at math, but what is it, like 11, 7, 20? Then you're literally paying $20 million for your whole right side.
Right. No, which is reasonable given who the first two guys are. And I'm curious, the Penguins have around 13 million in cap space, 12 or 13 million for next year, something like that. We know you got Letang and Carlson, and perhaps St. Ivany is the third guy now. At worst, he's your number 7 guy. And, you know who you have on the left side. You've got Pettersson. Graves, frankly, isn't movable. I wonder if they won't tinker with the blue line all that much, and all that money is going to go toward actually having a bottom 6, which they really need. Let's be honest, the third and fourth lines have been a major problem for years. I'm just curious, looking ahead to free agency, the blue line's pretty much under contract, but that bottom 6 is really painful on paper, and I wonder if that's where Kyle will be targeting.
I think he has to. I think the first 2 orders of business. We've said it for 3 months now. I think is Riley Smith, and I think finding something for Jari. I think he's a piece. I think he's a piece you can use, especially the way some of the better teams just fell by the wayside. Now I think Georgie. I love his nickname, George the Fifth. I think George played pretty good, but I think I brought this up on Madden. I don't see how it's not Nacious for Jari. I don't know. I mean, Jari's an improvement there.
He would be.
Mm-hmm. And then Nacious is restricted. They're not going to pay him. And Nacious with Sid.
Be perfect. And and then then that lets you, this is how it works when you get a good player like that. Then Drew O'Connor's on your third line all of a sudden, which makes your third line a heck of a lot better. And I listen, I'm not a huge Jari fan, as I've said. I think they have so many holes in their lineup. They don't need to be paying a mediocre goalie more than $5 million a year. Right?
That's the point, Josh. I have no ill will really against Jari. No. I just think
he's fine.
I just think I just think the Dalkovic and the young kid, and we save $5 million. No, you put the $5 million into Eller, O'Connor, and then Pusty. I want a leg breaker in there for Pusty. Yeah. I would take all the guys I've said left. I'd take maybe. Well, see, Sam Carrick's a fourth liner.
But you need a significant upgrade over the Emil Bemstroms of the world. It's just the way it is, right?
Oh yeah. No, exactly. I mean, and that's kind of my thing. You're going to talk about Chucky, John Gruden. I don't have a problem with Gruden coming up when somebody's sick or someone's on maternity leave.
He's one of those guys.
I don't want him starting. I mean, he's not.
There are some guys who can give you 10 or 15 games a year, and that's fine. That's just who they are. You need guys like that. I mean, good teams have guys who you can trust to go play for a month, and they'll get the job done.
I don't think Sammy Poulin got a long enough look for the pedigree of him and his size.
Right, and he may this year. I think he will, Joe. I do.
I hope he does. Well, it wasn't. No, I'm spacing. It wasn't Benson, but who was the biggest clown? He came in and played like the last game of the year, which I thought was ridiculous.
Jensen Harkins.
Yeah,
I know who you were talking about.
That's why you're the best hockey player there is in Pittsburgh. Like, how isn't Sam Poulin playing that game? Like, where? I mean, heaven forbid. I don't want Harkins to have a good game. I don't care if Harkins breaks Daryl Sittler's scoring record in one game. I want him on the team next year. Well, I'm sorry, did I blow up the microphone?
I don't think you will.
No, you're good. On the levels.
I don't think he will be. No, I agree with you. They need to find out with Sam what they have.
Right.
And we all know Sam.
We all know what Jansen Harkins is.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is a first-round pick, and Sam's never going to be a star. But, if he can be a bottom six center, that's great. I mean, you would take that.
Lars Eller's not playing forever.
No, and Lars Eller, who
played great last year.
He did. He's a really good player. I like him. I like him more as a fourth line center than a third line guy, quite honestly.
Right.
But he's okay as a third line guy if you surround him with guys who can score. And they just didn't have that last year. And the pressure on Crosby and Malkin, as they keep getting older, it's not going to work. You got to have at least three lines that can score. And look at the teams left in the playoffs. I always say, look at the best teams.
Oh, we're 7 guys away from the conference finals.
Probably, yeah.
At least. Yeah. Well, and Mark brought up, he always wants to move Gino. And I said, Mark, it's $6 million now. He's a pretty good center. He's not a bad second line center for $6 million.
He's fine.
He's just not old Gino. That's what he's. He's not. He's not the problem. I know I defend him it's 4 times a week on every show I do. But I mean, that's not the problem.
No, not at all.
I mean, could we find a better? Yeah, well, of course. He'll
drive you nuts sometimes.
Sure. Of course. He's not JT Miller. Where he's not Stamkos. It's like, it's like, but
he's still going to give you 60, 65 points. And, that's probably pretty average for a second line center.
Yeah. And for $6 million, I'd rather him not be a, St. Louis Blue. It's like, I'd rather just have this, I'd rather,
people don't want to hear it because, we're all obsessed with championships and winning and I get that, but there is something to be said for those guys finishing their careers in Pittsburgh. That means a lot to people.
1,000%. And I will talk baseball for a second, And I know.
Here we go.
Really? No. I know Andrew McCutcheon. He's a nice guy. He was nice to my nephews. He hasn't done 1/15 what Evgeny Malkin has done.
Right.
In the league and in winning a champ or anything.
Right.
And the way they're treated, I mean, you would think McCutcheon is Evgeny Malkin.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And that was true.
I mean,
that's a fair point.
And Gino does a lot for charity too, I might add. So he's a great guy.
The best charity name, by the way.
Gino's good for the box office too. There's a lot of Gino fans out there.
I know. Every time I hear, since all the tickets, Gino sells a lot of tickets too.
Right.
And I really think that when it was the end of disco, and they were like, and Sid was, just a year or two after concussion issues. I'm like, when it was like the first time, it didn't look like they were ever going to win more than one. I'm like, they're not moving Gino, because if anything happens to Sid, they need someone that's going to sell tickets.
Right. No, I mean, then Gino.
Now it's like knock on. Thank God Sid's been healthy the whole time.
Right.
But
Gino's 3 goals away from 500, I think. So
They want that.
So there'll be some things to watch in October too. Gino's 500 goals, Sid's almost to 600. So that'll get us through the first.
The thing about October, and it's a sad state of my affairs, I'll be watching in September on my computer on the internet. Not even the Penguins. I'm literally watching like Carolina inter scrimmage games on what their network used to be, whatever it was, and now they're all kind of Bally's or whatever. They used to have their own like South, whatever the little cheesy South thing was 3. Like NASCAR was on 1, and then NC State scrimmage was on 2. And
nobody loves the game of ice hockey more than you, Jim.
I enjoy it.
You really do.
I remember I did stay home from school one day specifically to listen to Penn's inter squad scrimmages on the radio, on the internet. This is like 99 or something. So like, who was on our team then, like Tyler Wright and stuff like that,
Yeah.
It was like, I remember I faked sick. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. Faked sick, and it was like the game started at 12, made myself a nice little sandwich, turned on the little internet radio, and just sat there and listened to Penn's Inter Squad.
So speaking of those, should we talk the lovely Disco Dare Bylsma?
Yeah.
Wow.
Is now...
you guys get the news so quick that you could tell that like I have 2 kids and I'm like, just like wrangling on a daily basis. I walk in, you guys go, "Do you see Disco Stan?" I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, well, the thing is too, I knew he was in line because he's doing great out in the desert.
Yeah,
and good to see Captain on. It's so funny because
he's officially going to Seattle. So
there are numerous reports. I don't think Seattle's actually announced it.
Yeah,
as of yet,
the press conference.
But there's enough people.
Probably when you're listening to this, everybody
it'll be already happening.
But what's funny is everyone's like, I have a lot of Seattle friends, fans, and they're so excited to get a team. They're like, "What do you think?" I'm like, "I think the team's pretty good, but I think the coach stinks."
Yeah.
And I said 3 years ago, and it's. I mean,
I wish he would have stayed in Philly.
Oh, I know. The best moment for Penguins fans in years was when they fired Lavalette. I'm like, this is great.
He certainly had their number. Yes, no question.
Oh, I remember this is one of the times I used my Pro Hockey News juice and stuff. I went to the press conference for the outdoor game,
right?
And I just remember seeing him standing there, the Hackstall, and I'm like, he's not a leader of men.
No,
like he.
Oh no!
It's just he's not.
It's Mike Johnston level. Like,
I call him Barzini. Just like, and that's when I freaked out. That's when I freaked out on Puckoff. Before we got Sullivan, I literally freaked out. I was just like, it's over. Sid and Cena got 1 cup. This is the end, because he's sitting there like, what's going on? I don't know what's going on.
I will say this: I'm really happy for Bylsma, though. Really good guy. And when he left Pittsburgh, he really took a beating at the end of his time in Pittsburgh, which might have been fair, given the talent that he had, right? There's no question the last couple of years.
Well, the Iginla was not a good look.
No, it wasn't. Then, he coaches Team USA in the Olympics, 2014 at the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
And they don't win the gold medal. He took a beating there for a lot of different stuff. And as Ray Shero told me a couple of days later, he said, "Jesus Christ, we lost 1-0 to Canada. Like, this is probably the best team ever assembled. It's not like that was something to be embarrassed about." But still, Dan took a beating. Dan went to Buffalo. It was a disaster. So I really wondered if he was ever going to get another head coaching job. I give him credit. He's been in that minor league team for years now out west.
He won.
And he's
winning and won.
And he got the job. It's going to be very interesting. He's a very difficult coach to gauge.
I think he's going to do a pretty good job there, because I think they are they need some more talent, but they're a pretty good team. Like, they're not as bad as Hextall made them out to be. Like, and with a better coach, they could have been a lot better. Yeah, like their first year was like, oh my God, they didn't get the goaltending, but it's like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Right. And then the next year they got the goaltending. And it's like, okay,
upset Colorado.
Right. Yeah, but it's like, still, they still need. I mean, Ronnie's close to the vest. Ronnie's my I love Ron, but they could get a few more players. Like, they'll probably get Nacious.
They need some stuff. They need something, don't they? Like, wouldn't they be a team like maybe take a run at Jake? So maybe they need some star power. I don't know.
Jake impressed me in Carolina.
He was good.
I don't think I'm not going to say I think he's a creation of Sidney Crosby, but he seemed less frail.
Yeah, I know what you mean. He took a beating, but he kept getting up for more. And not
that he doesn't hear, but it seemed like he took more of a beating here.
But things have lined up very nicely for Jake on July 1st because he was good in Carolina. He didn't hurt his stock any.
He's
going to get paid.
I want him to get everything. I mean, hey, if Mitch Marner can get $11 million, when people talk about him getting $9, like if he'd have to have Jack St. Ivany's agent if he doesn't get double digits right now. No, seriously.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like he has to get 10.
I would think.
He has to get 10
for a lot of years too.
Sure,
for the years he wanted.
He's going to get at least 6 years. Maybe. I mean, he's
30, right?
He's 29. He'll be 30 in October.
Friend of the show, my puck off co-host, the great Andy Picaro, sent me a pic. Andy, he loves trolling Toronto. He's one of his roommates from Toronto.
It's because he's a good man.
Yeah, there's a picture of Berube, and did you see it?
No.
It looks like, I mean, I don't think Andy it was there. Obviously, it wasn't there, but picture of Berube and Berube and Marner like having coffee, and he goes, not good body language from Mitch.
Oh, I think he's gone. I mean, that's certainly from.
I think he'll want to be after 3 days with Berube.
Oh, I do too. And people who cover the Leafs are all convinced that team's getting broken up. Not all of them, but he's the most likely.
Yeah, well, you'd be an idiot to get rid of Matthews or Willie. Willie's always been their best playoff performer.
Nylander, he's a good player.
Oh yeah.
And Tavares, I don't think that contract's tradable, and he's their captain too. So maybe
I was going to ask that. Do you think there's any chance he moves?
I think you really have to be a cold-hearted son of a bitch. And it happens, but yeah. I don't. I mean, I can give a. Where's the proof that Tree Living is a good general manager?
That's right. No, that's a good point.
So if he went, thank you. But if he wants to get rid of, I mean, he can get rid of the cap. I don't know. I think you got to eat.
I think Marner's the guy.
I think Marner's the guy, and you suck up Johnny for another year, and then you say, John, you can retire. You can get a job in management. You can go play somewhere else, but you're not playing, or unless you're taking the, whatever the 800,000.
How old is he?
And he's like 37, maybe.
I don't think he's quite that old. He's a little younger than Sid.
A couple years younger.
He's like 33, maybe. I'm guessing 34 in that range, but not the player he was. Still pretty good, but
Yeah, it's another guy that's just not what he used to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And he, it's well documented. He just, Dubas gave him too much money. And they didn't need him. That's the whole thing. They needed a defenseman. They needed Drew Doughty. They didn't need a second-line center.
John Tavares will turn 34 in September, by the way.
Okay. So he's a slow 33.
Been around.
Yeah. That's a lot. I
know.
That's not for
sure.
He's
winding down, I think, pretty quickly.
No, he is.
He's not having a Sid resurgence. I don't
know. They could get a return for Marner. They could get a significant return for him. I know he wasn't good in the playoffs.
As long as it's not rust and 3 first-round picks. I don't care what he gets.
I doubt that'll happen.
I think Sullivan would die rather than let that happen.
Probably, but yeah.
Me and Sully will jump in front of that plane.
and you brought up earlier, speaking of the Penguins, Jari and Smith. I too would consider trading Jari. I don't know that Kyle will, but I know for a fact he's going to look to trade Riley Smith just to shed that salary.
Oh,
he didn't fit in, didn't really want to be here. Everybody knows it. Only 1 year left on the deal, though, so maybe somebody will bite. That would be a big deal for the Penguins just to free up.
I think someone will bite. He's only making $5 million.
Right.
I mean, he wasn't a disaster.
Right. And he was actually a little better later in the season.
Yeah, and that'd be the two things I'd do, because then I think, I said I love Natius, and there's like 5. I think the top 6 is fine, and I don't even want to go big game hunting. I just want 6 legitimate NHLers playing the bottom 6,
right?
And all who play the game with bad intentions.
Yes, they have not had enough of that in a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely. When you look at the Penguins, you can find flaws anywhere, but the flaws in the bottom 6, they jump out at you so much. And like I said, when you watch the playoffs, The Penguins are playing a different sport when their third and fourth liners are on the ice.
I mean, that's what Joe Senior said, right? It doesn't even look like they're the same.
My dad said it doesn't look like they're playing the same sport. And I said, well, Dad, they're about 7 or 8 players away from that. You know, but yeah, exactly right.
Well, and one thing I want to ask you guys before we get into the next segment is just Philip Kral signing. What do we know about him? I mean, just a stockpile defenseman that's gonna.
Pretty much. I know it's my job to know these things. I don't know much about him either. I know he played for the Marlies, so obviously there's a Toronto connection with Dubas. He's a pretty big guy.
That's what I was wondering.
He's 6'2". He's a big guy. I think he's just a depth guy more than anything, though.
That's literally as much as I know. I mean, he said it a lot quicker than I could have been like, But I will say this. I got scared. It was almost clickbait. Someone posted that the Penguins, it was like a national hockey kind of thing, that the Penguins goalie prospect went back to Europe. And I was like, oh my God, that's our guy. No, it was a guy we got in a different trade. You probably know the answer to that. Isn't Hellberg? We did trade, but
I can't think of his name right now. But it's not the.
It's not the guy that we.
It's not the guy.
Yeah,
where's home the guy?
Yeah, it's not our guy.
But, that is correct.
It's not that guy.
No, it's not.
So,
but the Flyers might be losing their big prospect back overseas. Did you see that?
No,
their big goaltending prospect.
Oh, is he getting called to
his name's
called to fight the war?
I think he might. Maybe.
What did you see?
There's some word he's going to go back to. I think he is Russian. Now.
Well, and the biggest Penguin news maybe is Jaromir Jagr is now in the Penguins employee. Thanks to our buddy Kevin Acklin.
Yeah, actually, speak on that a little bit because my wife said, "What is he doing?" And I was like, "I'll ask them tonight because I don't exactly know."
I didn't really read I just know this. They signed him. I think it'll be out tomorrow. What he's really going to do, or just PR. Who cares? But I think scout. And we've talked about this before. I just think having him back around brought the big guy back around a couple of times, which is huge. And I think either you or Rossi was saying, they're meeting, and I said, give him power on the wall on the power play is where he should be working.
Yeah, that's
right. Well, I don't know what his front office duties are, but he can work the wall.
Yeah, and I can tell you, Kevin Acklin was in Prague for the World Championships, and one of the reasons he was going was to talk with big number 68. And as time goes on, I have a feeling Jagr is going to have a bigger and bigger role with the Penguins. They just want him around.
Well, it's so great.
And I got to cover all these press conferences back in February. I didn't cover him when he was in Pittsburgh. I was too young for that. But just hearing the guy talk, he's a genius. He's an unbelievably intelligent guy. And the Penguins are going to want him around a training camp around rookies. Like, why wouldn't you? He knows everything there is to know about the game of hockey. I mean, and he wouldn't be bad for the box office. He just makes you feel good when he's around.
I've been happy. It's well documented. I flew back to see him, but I think what was great was he was in the arena when he was in They call it Chechnya now. I can't keep up with my geography. Right. Chechnya now. Chechnya won the world championship. Pasta played a big part.
Yeah.
And because we talked about this last week, Pasta said, can we make Gary Bettman's party of 4 now? Can we invite Chechnya? So it's like, I love it, Pasta man. Because we always bitch about not having Russian.
Right.
How ludicrous is it that Chechnya is not even
stupidest tournament ever?
Yeah. So I had to bring that up because that's why Acklin and Yogs were all there for the.
Well, yeah, more Yogs the better. I mean,
yes.
like you said, have him on the half wall. We talked about it before, but I did say to my wife today, I said, I swear, I know I'm a rational person, but when he came out for warmups, 10% of me was like, I think he might have signed. This might have happened. But yeah, anyways, that'll do it for segment number 2. Coming up on the third segment, we're going to talk about the new NFL kickoff rule. And then on top of that, once we go through, it's a little convoluted. I wanted to get your guys' opinion. What are some of the worst rules you've ever seen implemented in sports over the years? We'll get to that and more on the third segment of 2 for Talking. Welcome back to 2 for Talking. The NFL, I don't know if you guys have read through it. It's lengthy, but the NFL has come up with a new kickoff rule. Basically, I'll give you the long and short of it, is that the kickoff will be getting kicked off from the same spot, the 35-yard line. The kicker is the only player allowed to be back there. And this is, by the way, happening in the NFL. It's being implemented. This is how kickoffs will be this season. the other team or the rest of the other 10 players on the kickoff team will be lining up on the receiving team's 40-yard line. And all their feet have to be on the 40-yard line. The kicker cannot cross the 50-yard line even until the ball has touched the ground or a player. Then on the receiving side,
there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, this is like what I said, convoluted.
Yeah, was there no more onside kicks? Is that
basically? But they want the kickoffs
to be safe, so everyone knowing. Like I said 35 minutes ago, you want to live till you're 70, drive a bus, kick the ball off. The most exciting play in football is a kickoff return. But oh no, someone might get hurt. So we can't have that anymore. That's so stupid. Yeah. I'm telling you. And you know the other thing I want them to do in the NFL? Just make blocks in the back legal. So because they call it every time, just make it legal. I'm sick of having every play penalty. Every kick is a block in the back, so just make it legal.
My only problem with the kickoff, they're still kicking off from the 35, so you're going to still all we see is touchbacks.
Well, so now they're not. If you kick it into the end zone, there's a 20-yard landing zone. So 20-yard line to the goal line.
I didn't even know
is this. Where so on the 35-yard line, 40-yard line is where the 10 players on the kickoff team line up. 35-yard line is where I think 9 players on the receiving team will line up, and then 2 players can line up outside of that in the landing zone, which is the 20 to the goal line. Now the kicker, if he doesn't get it in the landing zone, it's the equivalent of it being a kickoff out of bounds, and it'll be on the spotted on the 40-yard line.
It just give him the ball in the 40.
There's a lot of shit going on.
This is like just convoluted doesn't begin to.
I agree with Joe. Like the kickoff should be. They shouldn't be from the 35. Just kick from the 25-yard line since guys have such great legs, and let's see kickoff returns for God's sake, right? Like, it shouldn't. It's football.
And I think what they're going to do is they're going to shoot themselves in the foot here.
Oh, them? Really? I can't believe they would make something stupid.
Because now, like, people were floating out the idea. I don't know if this is going to happen, but they said, well, they're looking at some things with Justin Fields being one of the 2 returner guys, and it's like. That's crazy.
So you can throw a backwards lateral.
Well, like either that but he's so electric in the open field, and instead of a true kickoff return, it's just literally 2 teams lining up 5 yards apart. It's basically you're running a play, and I think that's going to make the NFL look kind of stupid.
Probably. Well, the Steelers obviously think the kickoff return is going to be a big deal. They signed Cordarrelle Patterson, who's one of the best kickoff returners ever. So obviously they were preparing for this,
but it'll be entertaining. Hopefully, I don't. I just
we'll go back to the regular.
Can't make it. It's like making auto racing safe. Hey, they're not running into each other.
I feel like I'm gonna lose a big parlay because of this kickoff shit. I can feel it coming now.
Yeah,
something's gonna happen.
Somebody's gonna hit it, not in the landing zone.
And it's gonna screw all of us good people in the world looking to make an extra buck.
Yeah, so you want to do so they'll have to review it. Oh, did it land in the landing zone or not? It's like that's everything. That's my big gripe about what rules. I think I go back to where there's no instant replay on anything. I really.
You're speaking my life. The chaos of it was fun, and we miss it. And there's still calls wrong. They get it wrong in replay half the time. They really do. And I hear I'll give you an example. The McDavid, I felt bad for Jesus at the beginning of overtime because the refs didn't see it, the high sticking penalty. Then they went back and reviewed it and gave him 4 minutes. But you could read his lips. He was saying you didn't see it. Okay, he did high stick him. It should have been a penalty. I get it. How many times, if you reviewed a minute of a hockey game, would you follow? That was a hook by the book. That was a hook.
Well,
interference. It's constant.
My only thing is I always think because I think when Yager beat us as a Ranger as a Flyer, they were like 10 feet off sides, and I'm always like
Danny Briere,
and I'm always like. Well, how would the Flyers, I hate goal interference, but I'm like, I would think, well, Harden's just going to run over Fleury, and then they're going to score. Like, he didn't touch anybody. I always think, what will the Flyers do with the rule? Is how I judge everything. So, do I want it? I just wish it was okay, well, if the guy's 30 feet off sides, okay. But I hate this minutia of looking at the plane. I think we may have touched this before. To me, it's it has to be if they're in the zone for 20 seconds or you've touched the puck, it can't be offsides anymore. I really that has to, so that can cut most of this. 3 hours ago, some guy's left skate was this far off. We're gonna review it. It's like it takes away all the thrill of hockey. Not all the thrill. I still love hockey, but I just wish that was. And in football, oh my God, they review in such a way you don't even know what's going on with the catch. I know the Steelers, the infamous is a catch. It's like in the back, you know when you see it originally, is it a catch in your backyard or isn't it? And they've convoluted it so much they don't even know what it is anymore. But you know it's a catch.
You know when I started to be down on replay, honestly, I'll never forget. You're going to remember it very well. Super Bowl 43, this Antonio Holmes catch.
Oh, yes.
Big party in my living room, Steelers party. And when he caught the game-winning touchdown pass to win the Super Bowl, nobody in the room cheered because they all knew it was going to go to replay. Everyone's just kind of sitting there waiting to see the replay. Like, is this good? Is this what we want?
Ruined it. Yeah.
Like, really?
And if you... The thing too with replay too is if you stop it at a certain time on your TiVo, everything looks inbounds or out of.
That's right.
Whatever. It's like there's an angle where everything's touching if you stop it right. I remember that I had a Super Bowl party that game too, and I ran out of breath before Harrison did. Like I was freaked out. I fell on my liver floor. When he was like about the 10.
I remember that one well. That got reviewed too. So
and I was a Swanee guy. Swanee's my catch Super Bowl. Like those are my favorite. But I think Harrison's play might have been the greatest play in Super Bowl history.
It very well. Or
or San Antonio.
That one too. You can certainly make
but just
the
way
argument.
we lost that game if he doesn't.
No, the thing I love about the Harrison play is every player chipping in on the way back.
Oh, it's incredible.
Like every defensive player throwing a block,
everyone throwing a block, yep.
And like there's the great image of him falling in the end zone, and you can see like Woodley laying there in the background and like a couple players just watching to see like did it happen.
Larry Fitzgerald bringing him down to the goal line, yeah.
Now, Josh, do you have any rules that are just like that you don't like that aren't just the replay? Because I took over the...
No, just little stuff. You know what drives me crazy? Why does there have to be a high stick on the puck? Like you have to be in control of your stick, and if you hit somebody in the face, then that should be a penalty. But what's the big deal? Who's being hurt because
because somebody showed skill in hitting the puck out of the air?
Right, like Gino tries to do it every game. He always takes the high stick on the puck. He just instinctively puts it drives you crazy. Like I've never understood why that's a big deal. I go back and forth on this, but I'm to the point where I don't care if guys kick a puck into the net. It's so hard to score goals. Like that doesn't offend me. I don't know why we're
I think a whole soccer kick. But if your foot's on the ice,
and they've gotten better, but they let more go than they used to with the.
I think that's a great point. I agree with you, but I think it would be like if you're now you have to review. Like I think if your skate's on the ice, you can move it. I think if it's up,
that's fair. I'd be okay with that. And I'm going to sound like a real Neanderthal. You'll love this because you don't like the safety stuff. I hate fair catches. I think you should have to show us. You should just be able to tee off on the guy returning the punt. What's wrong with that?
Yeah,
I want to see violence in football.
There you go. That's
fair catches.
Do you ever see the Jackass where Johnny Knoxville return punts?
Yeah.
It's like USC and those guys crush him. No, it's fun. No, that's a good. Yeah, I mean, there's so. I mean,
I knew Joe'd like that.
Yeah, there's. I mean, if you just want to talk about, I mean, I can go on forever about what I don't like about the NFL because I'm older than you guys, and I used to go to the games with my dad through River Stadium in the 70s.
So you went to the real football back then.
Yeah.
Played on the concrete.
Everyone in the NFL, everyone in the National Football League Hall of Fame that was inducted before 2002 would have been thrown out of football.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Every single one of them.
Yeah,
everyone. That's why why do you think the NFL is popular? Because of NFL films and all of those hits.
That's right.
And throwing quarterbacks on their head and head slapping people and knocking people's brains out.
I saw an interview with Mel Blount not long ago. He said, "Well, what they play these days isn't really football, so I don't really call it that." I'm like, "Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
it's true."
Here's a random rule that I've always thought, like, why I hate whenever you get a power play with, say, the Penguins are trailing and they get a power play with 1:30 left.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just not play the whole power play? Like, I know a lot of people, I've said it to people before and they're like, "Oh, that's stupid." But I'm like, if you take a penalty and it extends longer than the game and the team that's on the power play is trailing, you should be penalized. That being said, the power play...
I'm sorry, I'm confused.
So, like, if you get say there's 1:30 left in the game and Crosby gets tripped, so we're going on the power play. Oh, great, but we only get 1:30 of the power play.
You're saying the game should go the extra 2 minutes?
The game should go until the power play ends.
That's a great point.
And
that's
I'm
interesting.
Like, because then, the referees never call it, but like then you see the muggings happen in like the last 10 seconds of a game. Imagine if you're a player and you're sitting here and like, I don't want to take a penalty right now and extend the game another minute and 50 seconds.
I like it. Do we think NHL refs would ever have the guts to call penalties?
No.
That's the only one.
The only way you'll get it is that extension of a 30 seconds.
Joe,
that's a great point. I'm sorry. That's a great point. I love that idea.
It's interesting. A long time ago, it used to be, I'm talking like 50, 60 years ago, if you scored on the power play and there was a minute left, still you got the full 2 minutes.
Oh, it was called the Montreal
rule. Right? Yeah, Montreal.
Why didn't they bring that back?
Because, that would be the Edmonton rule probably. But I don't know. It'd be maybe like for 5-minute majors, it'd be a good deterrent or something. Just you get the 5 minutes no matter. I don't know. Oh, no, you get that anyway.
Yeah, get all. But like if you do it, I just think the league is so starved for goals. So if you score on the power play, let them go. You know what I mean? Like let them keep rolling.
Yeah, I've floated around with in my mind like having the 1 minute penalties.
Yeah.
Like almost like an incidental high stick, like no blood, like 1 minute. You know what I mean? It's like or like hey, his stick was there, he fell over. It led to a scoring. If it was like in the offensive zone, it would have been like nothing. But because the guy would be on a 2-on-none. Like you got to call it, so it's like that's not like a 2. It's like okay, you get a minute. Like
I got to get this in. One of my pet peeves: whenever there's a high sticking penalty, and the ref skates over to look at the guy's face, and he makes up his mind if it's 2 or 4. Like, what's the protocol? You see blood all the time, and it's still a 2-minute penalty. Like, how do they decide? It drives me crazy.
Right. You remember what's his name? DiPietro. I remember he got a high stick on the island from the Penguins. And he went off because he's a little baby and and he went over to the runway and he the referee only did 2 minutes and he came back. He was like, no. And he pointed at his eyebrow and there was just a little speck of blood and they gave him the 4 minutes.
Did they?
Yeah.
See, guys should just be like wrestlers and blade. Just I don't know why they don't. I'm sure there's an infraction for that. Of course, they'd get in trouble.
You never know though. I mean, sometimes the cut opens up again. It was there from before.
Yeah.
There's just so many, but it's still the greatest game there is.
Yeah. I just think that, or another alternative to the extension. My great idea, apparently. What if you could just take a penalty shot instead? Be inside of 2 minutes, if somebody takes a penalty, you can either have the power play that goes the rest of the game.
You're thinking outside the box,
or a penalty shot.
That's interesting.
Or whenever, anytime there's a power play.
And hockey's weird. There are times in games when you'd rather say you're losing 3-2 with 2 minutes left and you take a penalty. You'd rather give them the penalty shot because you're screwed because you're shorthanded the rest of the game, right?
Right.
There's lots of we could play around with this. I like where you're
you'd think what's Sid's,
or you could just
Sid's 0 for 5 all time on penalty shots. So
but what's his shootout percentage?
Pretty good.
It's in the 30s.
He was much
20?
better.
He's dropped a little bit.
Yeah.
He's still close to 40, I think. It's pretty good all time.
He changed he's been slowing down and not being Sid a few times this year.
I don't like when he does that.
Exactly.
Like Mario always said on breakaways, going with speed. That's what you got to do. And Sid never uses the backhand, very rarely on the shootout.
Remember Letang's first 8 times the same move he scored every time, and then they all figured it out.
The Western Canada trip when he was whoa, look at this guy. Yeah.
Speaking of the big guy, Lemieux, I mean, we only got to see him do one shootout attempt ever.
In Raleigh.
And it's such a shame. Yeah. And it was really anticlimactic.
Raleigh.
But talk about a guy that in his prime, that would have been a treat.
I mean, honestly, in his prime, shootouts, especially with the goalies back then. I mean, he was 6 for 8 all time in penalty shots, so that's
pretty good.
He's the greatest breakaway artist by far.
Yeah, I mean, he's when we were kids, it's you thought people just scored on breakaways. Now people don't. But you know what I mean? When we were kids, it was always the other one who really had breakaways in those days was Mario, and he scored every time.
That's right. You can tell we all were raised on Penguins hockey because we don't like 2-1 hockey games. We keep trying to figure out ways to get more goals into the game. That's the Penguin way.
But so does the league, though. I think, except for some lugheads in Canada.
Right, and it's better than it was. I mean, scoring is up compared to what it was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we could talk about this all for hours, but it's just the marketing of the league that we can say how maybe Fenway Sports doesn't understand what Mario means to Pittsburgh. Maybe us Americans, we kind of don't understand how they treat, how they want the lumberjack's kid to mean as much as the Russian.
They do. It's the Canadian philosophy.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like they want their fourth line. They want hard work and they want hard work and grit to count as much as flash from a different country, or they want to count more. It's kind of how like it's like their baseball. How we have all this like it's like in our culture that it's like baseball. It's like that's what hockey is up there, and we just don't understand the fact that like I enjoy rough. I enjoy a rough body. I enjoy rough play, and I enjoy good corner work. But in the end, I win a 5-4 game.
Yeah.
Right. No, I completely agree. But in Canada, you're right. The mindset's different. It really is.
It's all about the hard work, and look at this guy coming up, and oh man, he's done
kid
this.
Grew up on the farm in Alberta, and he works so hard now. Look at this kid. No, that element is there.
No, 1,000%. And I'd rather see, this kid was, in a private school in Russia, and he learned how to deke.
Well, we were spoiled with the
just
talent
a little bit, yeah, just a smidge.
So, well, that was great. I love doing this in person. I think we should
come to Pittsburgh more often.
I think we should fly Joe out on a weekly basis.
Well, there you go. Well, that's my big. I'll tell you, and other people will all say that. Some people, DV thought it was a great idea. Which they got they maybe iHeart can back it. I think there should be a Permanis airline. Right? Fly at the little airport, on the way to Kennywood from here on Coeur Road. Yeah. Just one flight a day. Just goes to Vegas and back. Yeah. What does everyone want to do? They just park their car on the runway. Yeah. Boom, instant. You can gamble, drink in the air, have your Permani sandwiches, and when you land, you're ready to go. Yeah. There's nothing fun. I mean, there's nothing more exciting than when you're going to the airport, going to Vegas.
Listen, I got to close the show with a story about the airport, the county airport in West Mifflin. Did you know? You might know this. The day Mario came back from cancer in Philadelphia, his flight was canceled. He was taking a commercial flight to Philly. He was with a Penguins employee. Cindy Himes is her name. And flight got canceled. It was like noon. Like, we might not have time to drive there. What are we going to do? And Mario looks at her. He says, "Don't worry. I know a guy who has a plane." And they drove to West Mifflin and took a private plane from the county airport to Philly. That's how he got there.
And what a goal and 2 assists that night too.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, West Mifflin came through.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, that's
fantastic stuff.
The great Steve Byrne, he'd be on the Permanis airline every
all
day.
The time.
He'd be painted like. Remember how the Indian used to be on the Alaskan Airlines?
He would.
It'd be Byrne laying in his casual, laying down on the.
Let's be honest, we'd all be on that airline.
Oh, I know. It would be great. Yeah. I just think that it's almost like the charter. Which is, you just go to Vegas maybe once or twice a day, and that's it.
It's easy,
and then you bring people back. It's like,
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Well, Permanis Airline, get on at Permanis, maybe plug. Join the show. And if you guys enjoy the show, please subscribe, like, all that stuff. It's on YouTube if you don't watch it there. But also email the show with random questions if you ever have. We've answered some before. It's 2fortalkingpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you guys, and we'll do this again soon.